It's 1:05, so let's get this session underway. First of all, an apology, which is a great way to start a presentation. Originally this presentation was going to be a joint presentation between myself and Emily, who actually worked with the Mozilla Foundation. Sadly, she couldn't make it, and it's certainly not their fault. As you know, things kind of come up last minute as they do. And so what we decided to do, rather than canning the talk, I'm excited about OpenBadges, and I think obviously we've got all of you very excited about OpenBadges. So I didn't want to ditch the presentation. So what did we do? Well, this is a repeat session. Just before the first session, I had 4 hours to create a presentation and learn everything there is about OpenBadges. Now, I do think I've done a pretty good job, but this is an example of what we professionals call winging it. I hope there'll be useful information here for you. I'm certainly going to walk through not just what OpenBadges are and how they work, but also then going to do some screen sharing to show you how easy they are to create in Moodle 2.5. This presentation that you're looking at is not all mine. This presentation, and again, I'm going to put attribution into the course right after, but this is actually based on a presentation actually created by Mozilla Foundation themselves, which was released under Creative Commons under their remix license. So anybody who's familiar with my slide work knows I have lots of graphics, but the slides that don't have many graphics you'll probably recognise as not being my style. So look, I guess it sounds like I'm lowering expectation. I hope not to. I'm sure we'll be able to cover everything that you'd want to do. So without further ado, let's kick in. OpenBadges in Moodle 2.5. The question that of course starts is, what if we use badges for learning? Comes first to the question of course, what is a badge? If you think about a badge as a physical term, and of course I was organised and I've managed to lose the one that I had here. Yep, wonderfully organised. A badge is it's always good to have props handy. A badge is something that you wear, that you put on your clothing, that identifies something about you. People wear badges as name badges in conferences, a formal badge that represents who I am. Others might put their business card in a badge, which is a formal identification, and the business card states where you come from. As you were younger, you may have worn a Sex Pistols or a Doctor Who badge, which showed your interests, things that you liked. Badges are a way that people individually choose to express something about them. So if badges are used to express something about you and to show something about you to the outside world that others can easily see, what if we try to bring this into learning? At the moment we issue diplomas, certifications, degrees, bits of paper that people mount and put on a wall or photocopy and stick inside a resume or a portfolio. These are things that don't very easily identify you unless you're one of those people that might be lucky enough to have a master's or a doctorate, and on your credit card it says, Julian Ridden, MA, BSCT, AEIOU. But even then, that isn't something that's readily available. So the idea really is that what if we could take this idea of relatively informal badges that also have formal capacity that we can use for learning, so that students can actually show and identify information, both formal and formative and summative, that they have. And when you take that a step further, we talk about, okay, well, if we talk about badges in the real world, well, what about digital badges? Now, of course, anybody could create an image or copy an image, put it into a course. Those of you who came to my dissection of the game-based course saw that before Moodle 2, I used to create badges, awards, just by putting a label into a course that appeared on a conditional. Now, anybody can do that. But the problem with that is it lacks any form of validity. It lacks any form of being able to have a confirmation, and more importantly, it's very difficult to share that with others because it's inside this system. So not just thinking about this as a digital badge, what if we want to talk about an open badge? Something that is a standard, something that you can recognize across multiple areas, and that's what I want to talk about today. If you've just been going, oh, I'm excited because I got a Doctor Who badge, I got an attendee badge, I think that many of you don't actually realize exactly what you've got and what we're stumbling towards. This presentation, I said it in 2 parts, and it's kind of fun to give this presentation because I'm going to be drip feeding you information. It is quite intentional. You'll be going, oh, but what about the next bit? I ask you to stay with me. And once I've kind of gone through all these concepts of how cool this is, and I want to get you excited about it, I'll then go and show you how in Moodle, how actually in this iMoot site this has been done, how it's been designed, and how they've been issued. So if we think about a badge, an open badge, what are we talking about? Well, when we talk about open badges, we want to talk about it as being a visual representation of, as it says on the slide, achievements, skills, interests, competencies. Now, as you can see, these are more formal settings, you know, but sorry, a mix of informal and formal settings. Now, some people use badges for this gamification process. They talk about badges such as, oh, here's one because you put a Doctor Who reference. You guys have been seeing these in this site. Here's a badge because you watched a video of badges. You know, that's extremely informal process. But we can also do this more formal things, such as you've picked up a certain skill, you've demonstrated an interest, you have achieved something. And in fact, I'm very keen in this presentation to talk about the blessings and curses of badges. Many people don't like badges, and I'm very keen to defend them, but I think what the issues we have is through misuse of the tool. But really, when we talk about what this badge is for, it's a visual representation of something that you have achieved, learned, or demonstrated. And the level of formality around it will come down to the issuer. The idea also is that the idea of an open badge is it complements traditional educational practice. Now, what I mean by complementing, it's not there to change how you teach. I know there's been lots of talks around badges as rewards in this kind of gamification style as really has unofficially become a theme of this conference. You know, we were pushing open, you know, hence open badges, open source, open resources. But it's been interesting to see that this year, I think there's been about 5 different presentations with game-based learning as its content. It's very much become a theme. Badges aren't just about gamification. It's not just about being seen as a reward, as a way of a carrot to move them forward. What we can also do is just use them to complement, to recognise what they've received. You know, you have completed this degree, you've passed this unit, you've reached this level of competency. So this badge isn't just a reward that's meant to drive you forward. This badge is also here that you can show others that you have met this competency, that you have that requirement, that you now have this certification. And if you look at it from that perspective, then yes, it's there to complement existing traditional practice rather than trying to change it into some new paradigm of the game-based learning or narrative, all these other elements. Again, I'm very keen to address that, because especially because of how we've used them here at iMoot. At iMoot, yes, we've used them as a fun reward. I'll even be honest, yes, I've used it to make you guys go into the forums and talk about stuff. I've used it to drive you into doing things that I wanted you to do, such as connecting, such as searching the site for things. You know, and yeah, I'm going to talk about objectives of badges again rather shortly. But also, you've received an attendee badge. So you can now show other people that I attended this conference. Those of you who presented have a presenter badge. It wasn't something to drive you to be a presenter, it's something in recognition of being a presenter. And that's what we mean by complementation. Complementation. I'm also making up words. Thank goodness I have an energy drink. So let's talk about it. So having talked about it in both those methodologies, then yes, badges can be used for both formal and informal learning pathways. Our formal pathways are you reach this competency, you've met this requirement, you passed this unit, you have reached a high level on this exam. So here is a formal recognition. And it can also be for an informal. Yes, you did 4 posts. Yes, you mentioned Doctor Who in a presentation. And again, because it is just a badge, it's just a representation of something that you as a teacher want to recognise in the student. How you use it then becomes very important. And as I said, I'm very keen, not right now, but to address the blessings and curses of badges. And again, it's very easy for people to blame the tools. There are actually lots of discussions in various educational journals and forums at the moment about how badges are going to be the bane of our existence. It drives short-term learning practice. It distracts the student. I actually disagree with all those statements, but they certainly can be used that way. The same way that people complain that we hate Moodle because Moodle is a text-driven static interface that's unengaging and difficult to use. Well, actually no, that's your use of the tool and your lack of knowledge around the tool. It can be that, and it can also be a dynamic, visual, easy-to-use tool. And again, so it's important to separate when people are debating around these things, whatever it is practical implementation, whatever it is actually technology. The other cool thing about a badge, and I really want to kind of stress this, because again, even here at iMoot, there's been, we'll talk about the gamification, I make a big deal. It's not just about soft skills, it can also be about hard skills. It can also be about peer review, you know, students giving other students badges. Because you can collect these badges, and I'm going to talk about this more, so this is one of those drip feedings I've warned you about. What do you mean we can keep them? I'll come back to that. Excuse me. But these are also badges that you can keep and store and then choose to show to others, which means that we actually, in many ways, are creating a digital portfolio of recognition of skills and achievements that I've had. And of course, the blessing of that is that we're talking more and more about digital portfolio, and it's becoming a greater and greater area of importance. And OpenBadges will lead strongly into part of that. So, if we look at it as a badge, and again, it's up to the issuer, the teacher, but what these things can do is, because they're being issued in recognition of a skill or an ability or a level of performance or a completion of something, if it's formative or summative, what it actually allows us to do is to capture learning wherever and however it occurs. Because as long as we can capture it in a single environment, well, we can really assign it towards anything. And so part of what Mozilla's been trying to do here is actually allow for innovation, allow people to use badges in cool, interesting ways. These are built for education. Already, we've innovated. I'm actually quite proud of it. No one's actually thought of using OpenBadges for a conference to show attendance before. But iMoot, especially because of Moodle, we thought tied into that quite nicely. And so one of the reasons that we're going to get the people from Mozilla here, and again, they were very keen to present, and it's just depressing that things popped up last minute that stopped them from being able to appear, is because this, again, was one of those examples of they've created this open badge standard, and all of a sudden we're using it for something they've never even thought of. Because in this case, you know, we're looking at a skill and an ability and something that you may want to show others that you've achieved. So having kind of given you all these kind of informal methodologies, yes, these also could be used for recognition of a degree, of a certification, of a diploma. But so having said that, there's part of the story I haven't told you. Because, well, if I'm going to recognise something large, like a diploma or a certification or a degree, then there must be some way of cross-checking. If it was just a graphic in a course, anybody could right-click and say that. You know, it's very hard to stop that being abused as a process. You know, we already see in the real world people who will create a false certification to hang on their wall. The reason that a diploma works is that when I go to an employer or a new potential employer and I show them a certificate that says that, yes, I actually went to Yale, they can actually have a process of being able to call that organisation and validate, is that indeed true? And with traditional electronic badging, that hasn't been possible because it was just a graphic. So the idea of OpenBadges is to try and provide something around that, to allow us to actually recognise. And because of that, and like I said, I know I'm speaking a bit rambly here, and again, that's sadly because I have inherited this slide deck, so I'm sure there's a better narrative that they tell with it. The great thing is that badges aren't about just formative or summative. Badges aren't just about formal or informal. Badges aren't just about hard or soft. It's not this either or. It's very keen that they stress over and over again in this presentation that this is all about both and. You can use these for whatever you want to use them for. So how do we get there? I've introduced all these concepts about a badge that's issued as a reward. We've all seen you get excited about it. And I ask this honestly, because it's interesting, because people have different perspectives. Who here was actually excited when you logged into iMoot and saw that you got a badge? And I want to ask that honestly. Who here did that actually generate a level of excitement that you got a badge? But why did it generate excitement? Yeah, Martha said, I want honesty here. Yeah, this is something that actually achieves different things for different people. It's built up. Again, how we use them here is quite intentional. When I get back to doing the demos, I like to explain some of the concepts around how we implemented it to them. Many people in the last session, I think we had about 70%, were saying that they thought it was exciting. They thought, oh, what's this? And it led them on a sense of exploration. And again, you know, we talk about these things, you know, all these wonderful ideas. It's great that I can just give you these things, but how do we turn it to something that's more formal, more recognisable? How do we get to that point? Well, let's talk about this now. What is an open badge? An open badge is actually an ecosystem and an infrastructure, a universal standard. Now let me explain each of those concepts and we're going to go through them all in a bit of depth. What you've been getting here at iMoot is not something that's isolated just to iMoot, something that you'll only see here and not be able to use anywhere else. It is something that is transportable. It is something that you can take with you. It is something that you can reuse. And that all happens because of an infrastructure that's put behind. Now, I said OpenBadges was created by the Mozilla Foundation, and it's an open source initiative. So the code is open, the infrastructure itself is open. Anybody can connect to it, anybody can utilize it. And what they're trying to do is provide a new ecosystem through this open standard to allow everybody from an educator, what we call an issuer who creates a badge, through to a student or a learner who receives a badge, through to the audience that they wish to reach, can pass and validate these through. And it's this ecosystem I actually want to talk about right now. If we start at the ecosystem, they actually call it the Open Badge infrastructure. I hate this slide, but I'm using one from Mozilla, so I want to respect it. But it said the Open Badge infrastructure, which creates the ecosystem. The infrastructure is, of course, a technical term. I'm going to actually go through it. But they call it the OBI, and that's hence the IT joke of oh hi, oh bye. But I'm not going to try and harp on about that because I'm sure that whoever wrote this originally enjoyed that. So let's talk about the ecosystem. The ecosystem starts off with a badge issuer, an organisation. Now this organisation can be anybody. Because it's an open standard, the code is free. I'm going to come to the code point a bit later on. Any organisation can choose to issue an open badge. And so the examples we've got here are things like after-school programs, government agencies, an online conference, I've put in there, maybe it's a university, a vocational education organisation. And what they do is, for whatever reasons that they or their educators have deemed fit, they've created badges and they're awarded to the learner who keeps them. Now, I said we can do that through multiple methods at the moment. I said I could just put a graphic in a course or create a certificate, a PDF, and just load an unbased desktop, and do that. And that in itself isn't really an ecosystem, that's just an awarding system. So how do we take that further? What's OpenBadges doing that's different? What OpenBadges does that's different is provides a centralized place where these can be stored, validated, and monitored, and it's called the backpack. And yes, we will go there. Stay with me for this bit of the presentation as I explain it, but I'm actually going to show you the backpack. I'm going to get you, if you want to create a backpack live in this session. Now the backpack is actually set up on a Mozilla server. It's basically a simplified digital portfolio for the storage and verification of badges. And so as a learner has earned badges from a particular site, such as iMoot or my organisation or my university, I can choose to publish those and store them in my backpack. Okay, well that's great. So I've now got a central repository as an individual, as a learner, that I can keep these badges. Again, that's not really a full ecosystem. I could have saved them on my desktop. So what comes next? Well, once it's in your backpack, because this is an open standard, the backpack can serve that badge out to different sites. You can serve it to your personal website. So you can actually say, these are activities that I've achieved. These are skills that I have attained. These are certifications that I have received. Maybe you want to push them onto your personal website to show others. Maybe you want to push it to a social networking profile so people on your Facebook can see you've achieved a skill. And that the people on Facebook, rather than taking your word for it, through the ecosystem, can actually go through and verify that, yes, that actually is a badge and where you got it from. Already at the moment, WordPress and Tumblr now have plugins that allow you to demonstrate, to push open badges onto those sites. So if you have a WordPress site, you can get an open badge plugin now to actually have those badges be able to push onto your blog, onto your area there. And again, this is where I say I'm winging it a little bit because I'm not directly involved with the project, but I know some job sites in the US have already started picking up an open badges and it's starting to spread. So the idea here is that if you have a digital resume on a website like My Careers or areas like that, then yes, you'll be able to push these badges out and it has a record of certification, of diploma, of skills that have been attained and more importantly, the criteria that was reached to attain it. Yes, I'm introducing concepts you haven't seen yet, stay with me. And this is so important now because now that you've got a place that you as an individual can store a digital portfolio of skills, achievements, attainments, of certification, of diploma, and the fact that you can publish it out, This then, and this is the aim of the Mozilla Foundation, will then lead to various new opportunities, various results. Hopefully people getting jobs, because it's easy to verify digitally. We all know the statistics now that if you apply for a job, the first thing most potential employers do now is they'll Google you, they'll check out your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Twitter feed if you have one, they check out your digital identity. Paper resumes are losing more and more relevance. They've become this door opener, but they don't seal the deal. So this provides a place digitally to be able to actually have evidence of learning. More importantly, people, because they can achieve badges, maybe they'll actually want to go out and get more learning. There are many sites now, and we talk about MOOCs as an example of this, which provide free online education so I can upskill. And a MOOC can provide a formalised open badge that will then prove to potential employers that, yes, I have this new skill, I got it from that location, here's the criteria I got it from. And therefore, hopefully opening up learning to more people as an incentive. And of course, through that, unlocking new opportunities for individuals, be it not just jobs, but reskilling, going into new fields of interest, and so forth. And so we actually now look at this model. Issuers and endorsers put them out. Earners receive them, the individual receive them. They can store them, they can basically put them in a portfolio, and they can now push them out to certain displays. Which now means this is what we mean by an ecosystem. And all of this is validated, and this will make sense as we move forward. This here is all validated. When an issuer creates a badge, they say this is what it was for, this is the criteria by which it was earned, this is where it's come from, and this is how long it lasts for. It might only last for 6 months or 12 months. And so when it gets pushed up to the backpack, it constantly validates. Is this person, they can't put up there themselves, it had to come from this other site. And if it expires, it will expire, and they'll have to resist it again. And when they go through and push it out, the ecosystem becomes incredibly powerful. And the backpack, which we'll talk about in more detail in just a second, is the central key to the ecosystem that allows all of this to happen. And the great thing said about it is it's an open standard. So how does it work? Well, let's talk techie just for a little bit. It uses what's called metadata. And for those of you who have a little bit of programming knowledge, metadata is a way of storing, usually kind of what we call XML, which actually provides information on the badge. Now, here's actually an example of a badge from this site. Inside this metadata, it says, who received it, a link to a place where you can find the evidence of what it was that they did to get this, when was it issued, does it expire, what is it called, a link to where the criteria is of what you have to do to get it, and an origin. And the reason this is important, even if you're not a techie, is that through the infrastructure that OpenBadges have built, this is how it connects to. If someone's just made one up and it tries to verify this information, and the site that they're pointed to doesn't know who they are, doesn't know anything about them, will reject it. It's not a valid badge. And this toing and froing is done through what's called the Issuer API. API is an application protocol interface. Yes, I promise, Matt, and I know the thing about this presentation on drip feeding. I will show you all that and come to it. Does it give a record of expired badges? I do not believe so. Once they've expired, they've expired. But I must admit my winging it means I want to confirm that for you. But I'm pretty certain they just disappeared. So let's get techie just for a little bit. How this operates. And this here is actually a chart that shows how things are authenticated and how claims are made. So what you're seeing here on the left, oops, sorry, I don't want to lose you there. So there are various issuers. Now, iMoot is an issuer. An issuer is an organisation that is creating certified badges for whatever purpose that they seem fit. They actually use this OpenBadge API to push that piece of metadata through to the backpack site. And so from that, the user, that little shield there represents the user, can choose, if they wish, to push a badge from the issuing site to a backpack. First of all, again, I stress the word portfolio. Portfolio is student-centered. The student may not want to keep every badge. You right now have received, some of you have said you've got 8, 12 badges. Now you may actually want to keep one that says I presented at this conference as a record of this is the conference I presented at, but you don't want to keep the fact that you also got one for being a Doctor Who fan and having a cat. That's kind of a little less formal than I want to keep. So it is a student-centered practice of them choosing to push badges into a backpack. Once they do, it stores it, and it's done through this API. On the opposite of that, once it's there, again, the individual student, the learner, the individual, can actually then choose, and to make this fit, which displaying sites they want to push it to. And again, stay with me, we're going to actually show you this. We're going to get you to do it if you have time, and you'll see it in action. But again, it all focuses on the student. It all focuses on this idea of ePortfolio, which is run by them, owned by them, controlled by them. The only thing they don't have control over is this verification process that actually determines, was this awarded, from whom was it awarded, and how long will it remain rewarded, which is what makes this so different to just having a graphic or just having a digital PDF. So that's it. That's some of the ideas behind it. What I want to do now is actually talk about how this works. And by the way, if you want to open up a new tab, you can follow along with me. Now I'm going to actually turn off the screen sharing. Oh, sorry, the camera, I should say, and turn on my screen sharing. Because what we're going to do now is actually walk through the process. If you want to open up a new tab and just load up the iMoot website, you can actually follow along. Come on, hurry up and load. Okay, in just a second, you should see my monitor popping up on your screen. Can you let me know if you see my monitor? Great. Gradually, so depending on your interface, depending on your bandwidth, this may take faster or lower to load. Sadly, it's something obviously I can't control. All right, so let's talk about how this works. First of all, let's talk about Moodle for a second. Each of you have been issued badges. Badges are stored at a site-wide level. In the iMoot site, up the top right, you should see your name because you're logged in. If you click on your name, that will take you to your profile. Give you a second to do that. And in your profile, this hasn't really changed from 2.4. You're seeing your screen. You have your navigation block on the side there, and it says view my profile, forums, messages, etc. What is new in that block is my badges. So as a learner, inside your Moodle site, you can see all the badges that you have been awarded in this site. And again, I've obviously issued myself quite a few. It's rigged, I tell you, it's all rigged. No, obviously for this process I wanted to have a whole bunch of badges to show you. So these are badges that I have received. Now right now, okay, it's great that I've got them, but they're isolated to this system. How can I take advantage of this open infrastructure, this ecosystem, to be able to move into other areas? Well, we do that by using a different site. Now, I'm actually just going to move this down to the URL. The address I've just gone to is backpack.openbadges.org. I'm going to paste this link into the chat for those who want to follow it. By the way, if you haven't experienced it already, when you click on a link in the chat, it does open it up in a new window. Backpack.openbadges.org is a place that badges are stored. It's that central repository, the backpack that I was telling you about. It is a free service, but it always will be a free service. I'm going to log into my backpack. Now, if you haven't logged in yet, you may choose to sign up. It uses a tool called the Mozilla Persona system. So if you already have a persona with any Mozilla system, maybe you've got a Firefox account and use it for syncing, that will work. But what I want to show you here is the backpack. Now, just so I can slow down for a bit, does anybody actually want to quickly create a backpack so you can experience how things move backwards and forwards? If you'd like to, just quickly put a yes into the interface, and I'll give you a minute just to create an account. If people just happy to watch along, I'm happy also to slow down and just have you watch. Matt's already got one. All right, well for that, I think what I'll do is I'll let you quickly sign up for one if you wish. So again, go to backpack.openbadges.org, Creating an account is quick and easy. Paul has already got one. I love to see you guys been exploring already. Now, what you see in your backpack, first of all, you've just signed up. You haven't done this before. You will come in here and have no badges whatsoever. I have badges already. In fact, I want to highlight that I've got badges from multiple sites. Yes, you're seeing some here on my screen from iMoot. You're also seeing that I'm got a couple here regarding my digital skills. I'm going to do a little bit of jumping backwards and forwards here, because to show you how the backpack works is kind of difficult without having badges. So let's talk about how Moodle can interface. Once you have an account, how can Moodle interface with the backpack using this wonderful new open standard? Well, hopefully you still have your profile open. And if you're looking at your profile, so this is the screen I'm in my profile. In the settings block, which in 2.5 has been renamed, by the way, it's going to confuse people when you upgrade, but it used to be called settings, is now called administration. It's the same thing, they've just renamed it to make more sense. Under there, you've got badges, backpack settings. Moodle needs to know you've got a backpack so it knows to interface with it. And all you have to do is go through and type in the email address and connect. So for those of you who have a backpack already or have just created one, it'd be really good if you can actually go to your profile, under what's now called the administration block, go to badges, backpack settings, and in there you type in the email address and connect. Once you've done that, your Moodle, not talking about the organization's Moodle, you, individual, are now connected your account to your account on Backpack. Once you've done that, you can go back to your profile and go back to the badges screen. Because once you've done that, you'll actually have 3 options on each of the badge. You would have had 2 before, but you now have 3. I'm actually going to go through these in reverse order, just to be difficult for you. The reverse order, the first one is the I, and when you hover over it, it allows you to make it private. You may have badges that you don't want other users to see, that are just for you, or maybe just for you and your teacher. By making them private, when anybody else views your profile, they will not see that you have that badge. So it's pretty obvious, but allows you to do that. The next one is also always available, and that option is to download the badge. Now again, it's not just going to download a picture. What it actually does is download this metadata file. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to save that. And the reason we have it is because you're going to be able to share that, upload it back to the backpack if need be. But the next one, because this will only show up if you set up the setting, you can also add to backpack. And I'm going to add my new observation deck badge to my backpack. It's as simple as this. I click on the add to backpack URL, or button, sorry. It says you're about to send one badge to the Mozilla backpack. Hurrah! And backpack says it's being sent. Now again, I remember I talked about that information in the metadata. This is what you're seeing. It's being received by Julian at moodleman.net. It's called Observing Activity of Your Peers. It was actually issued because the badge is awarded for observing activity of your peers, and a URL that points to the criteria. I'm not going to click on that now, but it lists this information. If I'm happy with it, I click yes. And as simple as those 2 clicks, your badge is now in your backpack. If I go back to my backpack screen and just hit refresh, I'll now have a badge there called Observing the Activity of Others. So it's now stored in this central location. It's been issued by the International Moodle 2013. Now, of course, over time, in fact, if I turn on mine, over time, you'll end up with a lot of badges. This becomes quite, unwieldy, especially if you're one of those people who wants to keep every badge you've ever had, which some people do. The cool thing about how Backpack works is it doesn't just keep everything in one place. Once you've got a couple of badges in there, you can form them into what are called collections. Now this is a very simple process. I love the interface they've done here. I've actually created a couple of ones already. But to create a collection, as it just says drag a badge here. You drag a badge over to the left and then you can double click on the title and give it a name. Now, as I say in the classics, here's something I've prepared earlier. Here are my iMoot 2013 badges. Now, I've just brought a new one across. To add it to the collection, I just click and drag, and that badge is now part of that collection. Pretty simple. So again, I know I'm going a bit fast here for some of you. I'll give you a chance. If you have sent a badge to your backpack, let's create a collection with it. And you just click and drag it over. To rename it, you just double click on the title, and you can then type in, you know what, I think I want to have a space there, iMoot 2013. It's a very, very simplistic interface. I think they've done it well. Once you've done that, again, by default, this is what I refer to as a digital portfolio. By default, with portfolios, the only person who sees it is you. This is yours, not somebody else's. This belongs to you. So by default, nobody else can see this but you with your login. But here's the cool thing. Maybe you want to publish this out. Maybe you want to put this in Facebook or onto Twitter or onto your blog. And so to do that, if you want to share it, we make it public. So what I've done here, and this is, you may choose or not choose to do this. You can go through and put a tick into public, and that will go through and make it available. Once I've made it public, and I just want to highlight that for this demo, I've actually earned a whole bunch of badges regarding my coding ability. You know, I'm trying to learn code. Now, you can see here it's a whole bunch of badges I've earned relating to code. Oh, what does this mean? Click on it. Oh, this is called the Webmaker Super Styler, a badge for editing and adding CSS formatting. Now, just to show you what I mean by the fact these things can all be checked, it tells you where it came from and the criteria that was used. If I click on criteria, you can actually see what did I have to do to earn this badge. It indicated that the owner's completed a task successfully at least 3 times. I had to demonstrate a CSS skill by using a CSS property to properly format text. Riveting badge, as you can see, but I have it. And I've made it public. Well, let me jump back to my profile for a second. I'm back in Moodle. I have a public collection. So in Moodle, look what's here. My Moodle site has brought in my recognized skills from my OpenBadges. I'm not going to go back there because I want to just focus, but it's in the badge settings. Once you've gone through got open collections, in your badge settings, once you're connected, you can choose to bring in individual collections to show to other participants, to your teachers. And your teacher who goes through and says, what's that icon, can click on it in Moodle and actually see what that badge is and the criteria for which it was awarded. We have a way of transferring things like recognized RPL between sites using OpenBadges. I've got a way of showing what other certification, what other skills I have using OpenBadges. So not only can I push stuff from Moodle up there that I've attained, I can actually take things from that cloud, from my backpack, and bring them into Moodle to show my people around me what I have attained. And this is where I get really excited about it, because this is what we talk about, we refer to it as an ecosystem. It's not just about an isolated area where I say, yes, I've got something, but being a publishing engine also allows us to transfer it from location to location. So again, I'm just going to go back again. And there we have it. So great, I've talked about how I can take them from Moodle and push it out. I've also talked about how I can have from the backpack from out there and bring it into Moodle, and it's all seamless. When one of those badges expires, you know, let's just say the super styler I have to maintain every 6 months. When that 6 months is up, it will disappear from here. It's no longer a skill that I have current. It keeps track of all of that for us. Jumping back to the backpack, so that's collections, and public allows me to push it to those locations. Also built in is integration with some of the key social networking areas. Down the bottom to the right of the collection is another little icon that says share this. When I click on that, I'm actually going to do it. So if any of you here actually do follow Twitter, you'll see this happening in just a second. First of all, it's confirming these are the badges that I'm about to share. You can see all the ones I've added to the collection. It says where it's come from, the URL, the reason I got it, the date it was issued, the evidence and criteria from which it was issued, or for why it was issued. And you can choose to share it. Now, currently they support Twitter, Google, or Facebook. And you can also get what's called an embedding URL to add it to things like Mahara or LinkedIn. But built in is this key social networking element. So I'm going to share this. I'm going to tweet it. When I click on tweet, it brings up a Twitter box. Now, of course, you haven't signed in yet. You need to sign in. I've done this demo. It's the second time I'm doing it, so pre-logged in. But it says check out my OpenBadges at. You know what? I might change that URL. I loved iMoot 2013. Check out my achievements. Tweet. And just to show you, here is my Twitter. Load in just a second. And right now, in Twitter, it has gone through and put that link. In fact, I think I've seen someone else. I know Judy's just talking about it. I'll see if anybody else wants to share theirs in a minute. Now, just to show you what happens from an external standpoint, I'm going to log out now. I'm not going to be logged into the backpack. I want to show you now what an external person would see. I'm not logged in. Someone looks at my Twitter feed and says, oh, Julian says he loves iMoot. We've got some achievements. If I click on the link, it opens up that part of the backpack and it just shows just those achievements. So you now become a publisher of your skills, of the ones that you wish to share, the ones that you think are useful for other people. And as I said, you can do it on Twitter and Google+, you can use social networking, or you can link to this URL. There's an address up the top, and embed it in things like your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook account. In fact, it's always dangerous when I open up Facebook in a live session. I apologise for whatever pops up here. This could be a bad mistake. Let me quickly load that. Because my Twitter feed also pushes into here, so I was hoping it would be there already. Might just take a second. That same link's also going to appear on my Facebook feed. I'll come back to that later. So that's why I get so excited. And so we talk about badges. It's this ecosystem, it's this publishing engine that allows us to do whatever we want with it. Let me just stop sharing and just move back. And so we talk about why do we have it now. So what I've introduced is the technology, is how Moodle does it. Again, I'm going to go back to Moodle in a few minutes to show you how that was done as well. I want to show you from a teacher's perspective how easy they are to create. But before I get there, I just really want to highlight this misconception of how badges are used. Many people think of badges the same way that I've used them here at iMoot. And by the way, this iMoot is not a teaching site. In many ways it is. I think some of you may happily argue that. We've taught many of you a lot of things. But what I mean by it's not a teaching site, its focus isn't on educational delivery. We are a conference. I've just gone through and issued you a whole bunch of random badges to get you excited about it and seeing what they can do. But what you're also doing, I'm very interested to see and hear an honest appraisal of this. Would anybody here actually say there's suffering a bit of badge fatigue by now? You've got too many badges, you're kind of over it, you're not looking for them anymore. That many of them didn't have a lot of value. Are any of you actually suffering badge fatigue? No? Got a no from Judy? It's funny, when I asked this last time, we had a lot of people saying they were doing badge fatigue. I'm loving to hear that you haven't. Because the danger always is that, if you're issuing too many too quickly, yeah, so okay, Martha says, yeah, she sees them as noise. I do think they're valid comments. But this, again, first of all, we're talking about teaching style, the audience you're participating with, but also for what you issue a badge for. As I said, if I'm in an informal environment, I can actually issue a badge for completion of a unit. That's not noise. That's recognition of completion of a unit or of attainment of a skill. I've been working with a technical college here in Sydney, a vocational college that does woodworking, electrical engineering, things like that. And one of their requirements is that students aren't allowed to use certain bits of machinery until they've been accredited. And so what they're now doing is issuing badges for those accreditations. So all students have to do is show this badge to be able to use that piece of equipment. When used in those kinds of ways, or for a diploma, or for a certification, it isn't noise. But as I said, the same point is, badges the way I've issued them here, and like I sound negative. I love using carrots. Anyone who's come to my There's No Such Thing as E-Learning or the gamification course knows where I kind of sit on this fence. But I'm just keen to stress that people who say, I don't like badges, they're just noise. And by the way, I don't want to see that as being targeted at Martha, please. That wasn't the intent of that statement. But there is a lot of talk around academic circles about, badges don't have effectiveness. Badges are just noise. Badges are... I get really upset by that because, no, that's just how those individuals are using it. It comes down to how you want to do it. And I said, I believe in both. If I have to be honest about where I sit on this fence, I love badges as rewards, as engagement mechanisms, as motivators. I also like badges that are actually there as a recognition of a formal achievement that they can be proud of and show others. I'm excited with open badges that people will do things like finish Moodle bites, and they'll issue a badge they can now put into their profile on Moodle.org. I can actually on Moodle.org. They're not on 1.5 yet. I don't know when they're 1.5. They're way past 1.5. They're not on 2.5 yet. I don't know exactly when they're going to be migrating. But once it's there, you may want to say, look, I've been to iMoot and put that on your Moodle profile. I have, I'm developing plugins, but I actually have code skills. Here's my certification. I went to Code Academy. I actually do know PHP. Here are my skills. So when people are looking at the plugin made by you, they know it comes from a good source. That kind of stuff isn't noise. That is incredible value, and why I want to make both positions clear in this talk, because if you want to be a motivator, a gamer, a person focusing on engagement, brilliant. If you just want to record value and allow them to have digital portfolio, brilliant. If you're still after this explanation think that badges are noise, then it's hard for me to convince you otherwise. I think both arguments do speak for themselves. So, how is this all done inside of Moodle? Well, let me start screen sharing again, because creating badges is actually very simple. And it ties into Moodle's completion engine. Now, of course, not all of you can create badges in Moodle. You have to have teacher rights. Or non-named teacher rights. But I'm going to show you, because obviously, well, I'm an admin. As I say, I'm a god of this Moodle site. It's mine. So I want to show you how they were done. Administrators can issue them at a site level. If I do go to site administration, they can be issued at a site level. Although the reason I just highlight that is I haven't been doing them at a site level, because the iMoot site actually has thousands of accounts of people who signed up but didn't join, or people who signed up but forgot and created another account, or lost their password and couldn't get by, things like that. So doing it at a site level for me wasn't very practical. So what I did was I started using them inside the iLounge space. What I'm going to do here is actually go through into the iMoot Lounge. If you think carefully, you'll be able to get a heads up on how you can get some badges in just a second. So here I am inside a good old-fashioned Moodle course space. I'm very keen to highlight, for those of you who wonder what's different, our site is a standard Moodle. The only things that we have added to our Moodle site is Big Blue Button, which obviously is needed for this element. We've added this little block we put on the side here that generated the program for you, and the Twitter block. That's it. So apart from that, you are looking at a standard Moodle 2.5 here. I should also point out, I also created a custom theme just to make it look pretty. But in regards to functionality, we are standard Moodle. So, inside this site, I've got my course administration, I've got badges, manage badges. This is how we can create badges. Now I'm going to create a new one first to show you the process, and so you can see what's possible with it. I'm going to add a new badge. To add a new badge, I have to give it a name. Let's just create some random badge. So here's the some random badge. For description, you have been random. Are you tired? Okay, I should have thought of a better example, but I just wanted to get something up there. We then go through and add an image. So as I say in the classics, here is something I prepared earlier. Here is my badge of randomness. I love Moodle 2.4 onwards because you just click and drag and there it's uploaded. I do love that. Where does it come from? Now by default it puts the organisation's name, so this is the International iMoot 2013 with the admin's contact, but you could change that to be your course name, your email address. Bearing in mind that the admins can lock that down or not lock it down, it's up to them, but by default teachers can change that. We can also set an expiry. I already mentioned that some formal qualifications may expire. The people who I was talking about who had to get accreditation or recognition to use a piece of equipment actually have to get that updated every 6 months. You're not allowed to play with a three-phase power supply unless we know it's safe for you to do so, so you have to pass this test. And every 6 months that expires, you have to do it again. So you can have it, in our case, never expire on a fixed date, or expire let's not do 6 weeks, 3 months time, 12 weeks from today. So you can also set an expiry based on a fixed date or a relative date. So then I create the badge. Now what you'll see is we now have my first badge. I go to overview. We have the some random badge award. There's the image. It expires 84 days after being issued. What's missing at the moment now is a criteria. How is this awarded? Why is this badge given out? Add criteria allows us to add a criteria that outlines the use of this badge. And this is where I get excited. We can do it based on a variety of options. It can be manually issued by role. Now, many of the badges that we actually had to create have been manually issued. There's a Twitter badge. If you do 5 posts in Twitter with our hashtag, I had to manually issue you a badge because Moodle can't read Twitter, so that was manual. There's another one I did about joining the Facebook group. Again, because I had to check the Facebook group, that was manually issued. We can do it based on course completion. You complete this course, you're going to receive the badge automatically that yes, you've completed this diploma or this module. So you can do it based on total course completion. Or we can do it based on individual activity completion. Does anybody here have the activity badge in Moodle? Oh, not the activity, the communication badge. Does anybody here have the communication badge in Moodle? Yeah. How was that awarded? That was based on activity completion. And it was completed when the social forum, the helpline, or suggestion IDs, these are the 3 forums inside the lounge space. And they all had to be marked complete. Now here's the cool thing. You can say all or any. For this badge, by the way, this is the communication badge, you're getting some background information now. The communication badge was issued, each of those forums had a completion set of 3 posts or replies. That's how we did it. If you did 3 posts or replies, not 3, sorry, 5. If you did 5 posts or replies in each of those forums, it got marked complete. But the cool thing about this badge is you can say all of them have been marked complete. You have to actually complete each of these tasks. Or I can complete any of the selected activities. And this is what we did for the communications badge. It just did it for one. Does it backdate? Good question, Matt. I'll cover that in just a second. So I'm going to click Save on this criteria. And then I can activate it. Now before I activate it, I also want to show you the other option here, because manually issued by role is worth seeing. Manually issued by role actually has the same kind of convention behind it. You can have different roles in your site. We actually have an iMoot facilitator, non-editing teacher, conference organizer. We've actually created a couple of custom roles in this Moodle site just using the admin screen. In fact, I even created a badge for certain trusted people around our team to actually also just award badges. We've got people here who aren't Moodle admins, but they're helping us run the conference. So I gave them just an award badges thing. But again, here's a cool thing. If you want to have a process of double checking, I can say that the award badges and iMoot facilitator can issue them, but it has to be issued by all of those roles to be awarded. So if award badges person gives it, it actually doesn't show up on the individual's profile until the iMoot facilitator also gives it. So you can have a double check process if you want to, or any of them. The moment one of them gives it, there it goes. And so again, that in itself, especially for those of you who have more formal institutions where you want to get out more formalized, structured badges, it does give you a lot of control. I had a plan, by the way, and I'm going to highlight this. I had a plan that we couldn't do. I wanted to allow each of you to be able to issue badges. I was going to do we won't call it just popularity contest, a fun one. That's that anybody here could volunteer someone else for a badge. I actually discovered a bug. I could create a permission and allow a person to do it, but it didn't show up in the interface. So what I'm going to do here is actually hopefully get you on board. If you would like the students to be able to issue badges, or as the students with an approver above them, which I think would be fantastic for student-centered practice, we've actually created what's called a tracker item. And I'm going to put the URL in. Please go through, read this, and if you agree with it, you can vote on it. And this will let HQ know that this is a rather major feature. Because as I said, at the moment, if you're a student, even if I give permissions, we can't do student-issued badges yet. And I think it's a real sad thing. Again, it's a brand new feature, guys. Now, with brand new features, Moodle tests them, but they don't think of every single way that educators think of using them. And that's the great thing about the tracker at Moodle, is it gives an interface for you as educators to give direct feedback back to the development team at Moodle. So please, yeah, if you're interested in having students issuing badges, please visit that link and vote for it. That would be fantastic. All right, I'm going to cancel that because we've already given our criteria. We said you had to finish one of the forms. I'm now going to go through and enable access. Now the question that Matt asked just a couple of lines ago, does it backdate? Yes, it does. When you click enable access, this action will perform a check if either users have already completed the requirement for some random badge. So if people have already met the requirement even before you got around to creating your badge, then yes, it will pick those people up and issue, as long as they're currently enrolled. Obviously, if they're no longer enrolled in the course, their material won't be there to be issued a badge. Now, I'm not going to hit continue, because otherwise all the people on the forums will now suddenly get a random badge, and I don't want to do that. But hopefully you've seen just how simple that process is. Does it create them to be manually awarded with a cross-check if needed, based on course completion, so it does it automatically when a course is complete, or upon a specific individual completion. And that could be one item, a combination of items, or a forced all of these items. But all of that logic is actually done through quite a simple interface. So yes, now do you have to be registered as an issuer with Mozilla? No, there's actually no registration you have to do. Mozilla actually doesn't care about that. No, that's the wrong way of putting it. That's not nice. Yes, anybody can become an issuer. All they want to do is create this backpack where they can be stored, where it can be kept. The cool thing about it is it's up to the people who are validating. If I'm viewing a person's backpack and there's a badge there from an issuer, I can go through and visit that issuer. In fact, if I just go back into my backpack for a second, which I wonder if it appeared on my Facebook feed by now. I'm really annoyed, it's not showing up. My Facebook isn't updating. So let me just go back to my backpack and log in. Yeah, Mozilla doesn't want to see themselves as the gatekeeper. They don't want to see themselves being as the verifier. So what happens is when they're here, if I've shared this with people, when they click on it, it tells you the issuer, where it came from, and I can visit, and then I can make up my mind if I think that's a valid issuer or not. Now, if that actually goes to the Yale website, and again, I can still contact them the same way I would validate a physical diploma or a physical certification. It keeps all of that nice and centralized. Can badges be withdrawn? At the moment in Moodle, no. I don't know if that's a bug or not. There is certainly an interface for badges to be withdrawn, I believe, but currently in Moodle, I mean, apart from the expiry, it's been awarded in error. If a student has already published it, I do not believe, it's a very new feature to me, very careful my terms, but I do not believe it is withdrawn. These are things, Sergio, I must admit I would recommend you play and test with. So look, that's it. That's my presentation on, let me stop screen sharing, on badges. I'm very excited. I think you picked up on that. Seeing everybody here get so excited about badges has been fantastic. Seeing the impact it had on you. When I awarded you badges, you started talking to each other. It's really worth going to the social forums if you've been there already. People started talking to each other. The first day of the conference, without me telling you to go to the forums and talk to each other, they started collaborating and sharing content. Now, by the way, I first of all didn't drive it, and they're doing it based on just a badge, but they were wanting to do it. It's very keen. I actually want to highlight a couple of things about my objectives. I had objectives. Now, this is a conference site. They're not educational objectives, but it's still the same context when you move it across. So the first thing I have my objective is that every year we get so many people contacting saying they can't find the program, they can't navigate around. And don't get me wrong, our site's far from perfect. I don't think any site is ever perfect. But much of it is just they never bothered to look. And many of you probably have the same experiences on your own Moodle sites for various reasons. The very first thing that many people started doing, and it's great hearing so many of you say this earlier on, is once you got a badge, you started exploring. You wanted to find them. You wanted to see where they were there. People were exploring the site far more than ever. The amount of support requests that we had for how do I find the program, how do I enter the attendee zone, I would say down by 80 to, if not 90%. I mean, so that's a huge difference. And especially considering that between this time this year and last year, it's a completely different look and feel. I was expecting it to be worse, but no, it got better because people wanted to explore. The next thing it was people also were talking to each other. As a conference organizer, I want to create community. You've seen our whole idea at iMoot is unite, collaborate and connect. That's what we want people to do. And people talking and discussing in the forum without me, without anybody from the iMoot team driving that discussion. And there's collaboration and people forming very informal connections quickly, which again was an objective. And dare I even sound like a marketing person, I also want people to use things like Facebook and Twitter to help spread the word, to let other people know about it. And so by issuing badges to encourage that also worked. By the way, and so I mentioned that, badges can have objectives allow you to drive your students to the things that you want to do without saying you have to do it, and it's surprisingly effective. Now, so just reading through the chat, yes, it is just issued to one email address, and that email address is not shown to anybody. You can't search it by email address. It's just if you have an account, there it is. Because bear in mind, inside that one account, you can have multiple collections, and each collection has its own URL that you can share with different people. And if you want a separate account, then you have a separate account. So, yes, at the moment it only hooks into one email address, and I can't speak on behalf of Mozilla, but certainly if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't want to change that. Again, it's just a method of connecting, of having some form of connector between the two. And because people remember email addresses more than usernames, it was rather obvious. Can badges be linked to outcomes? No, not currently. They're linked, as I showed you, to activity completion, to course completion, and to issued by role. So unless you want to go through and check people's outcomes, performance, and issue it manually, that's currently the only way. But again, let Moodle know. It's a brand new feature. I'm sure it can grow. And what are other questions? So please keep throwing questions in chat. I'm going to answer what I can. Badge certification has to be stronger. Yes, and Sergio, I do agree with this, but also there is no way that a central organisation can verify. Then we have all the argument things like the App Store, where people get approved, not approved. In fact, some very valid apps don't get in, and some very non-valid apps do get in. There's no way of creating a centralised authentication source. And Mozilla are actually very keen to point out that that's not their role. They're just the ecosystem. But as I mentioned, when you look at a badge, you can see the issuer. You can see where they are. You can follow the link. Absolutely, it could be used commercially. It's open source code. If you're going to change it and sell it, you can't do that. It's still covered by that license. But yes, I mentioned things like job sites in the presentation. If you want to put OpenBadges into your job site as a commercial entity so that people can publish their badges into there, absolutely. It's an open ecosystem. Again, Jeremy, I think it's a valid point. The great thing about being an open ecosystem as it is I think it should spread very quickly. The issue is when you create closed ecosystems, it's very hard to get people involved in them. I personally expect this to grow quite quickly. All right, well look, thank you for coming everybody. I'm glad you enjoyed the session. These slides are in the session space. Set up a backpack, play with it, publish it, and explore. And again, do check out the OpenBadges website. They've got a whole bunch more information there. As I mentioned, my slides are pretty much completely taken from there. Just so you know, I sadly were meant to co-present this and we couldn't. But do check out the website. There's lots of information there, and obviously play with the badges. All right, thank you very much everybody for coming. And I have to head off sadly, but I'll see you all at the next session.